Having an illness is difficult for anyone, but sometimes when we get diagnosed with something like cancer, it becomes a real long term battle to try and survive, yet alone to live a healthy life. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to a man from America who has been a warrior with cancer, and he's going to tell us his story and how he's turned that adversity into his truth. Hi, this is Joey Buzzattle, and welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to Terry Tucker from Denver, I think, America, and we're going to hear his story and learn a lot about how we can change our thoughts to become more proactive and happy. Good morning or good afternoon, Terry. How are you?
I'm great, Joe. Thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you.
Are you in Denver? Did I do that right?
You are absolutely right. Yes, you got it.
Because I've got a lot of people from America coming on the podcast, and there are some places I've never heard of before. So I'm going to learn a lot about America, I think.
Super.
Before we start, do you want to tell our audience a little bit about yourself, about just a little bit of your general story?
Sure. So I was born and raised, I'll give you another city, in Chicago, Illinois, which is probably the third largest city in the United States.
We know that one.
You got that. Yeah. I am the oldest of three boys. You can't tell this from listening to me, but I'm 6'8" tall, and I played basketball.
I could tell that you were tall.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, so you played basketball?
I did. I played basketball in college despite having 3 knee surgeries. And when I graduated, I moved home to find a job. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college, and I was all set to make my mark on the world with my newly obtained business administration degree, and I look back now like what a knucklehead I was. I didn't know anything about business, just because I had a degree. But I was lucky. I was able to find my first job in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain. That was the good news. The bad news is that I ended up living with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mom care for my dad and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. In my professional career, and this may take a second, I was that marketing executive, as I mentioned. I was also a hospital administrator, a customer service manager, a police officer. And while I was a police officer, I did undercover narcotics work, and I was a SWAT team hostage negotiator. I was also a school. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting stuff. I was also a school security consultant, a high school basketball coach. Last year, I became an author. But as you mentioned, for the last 9 years, I've considered myself a cancer warrior. And then finally, my wife and I have been married for almost 28 years. We have one child, a daughter, who's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is a lieutenant in the newly created Space Force. We have a new branch of the military here in the U.S., and she's kind of on the ground floor of that. But all that's top secret, so I don't know anything about what she does. So
I'll have to get her on the show, I think.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Because I find that really fascinating, all that sort of space stuff that it's happening at the moment. So we mentioned that you are a cancer warrior, and my mother passed away from cancer. So it is, when I hear people that survive, I get really sort of excited because I saw probably the darker side of it. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about your cancer and how that what happened for you at the beginning?
Sure. So at the time it happened was back in 2012, and I was a girls' high school basketball coach, and I had a callus that broke open on the bottom of my left foot, and I didn't think a lot of it because, like I said, I was a coach, so I was on my feet a lot. But after it didn't heal for a couple of weeks, I went and saw a podiatrist, a foot doctor friend of mine, and he took an X-ray and he said, I think you've got a little cyst in there, and I can cut it out. And he did. And he showed it to me. It was just a gelatin sac with some white fat in it. No dark spots, no blood, nothing that would give him pause at all. But he sent it off to pathology. And then 2 weeks later, he calls me. And the more difficulty he was having describing what was going on, obviously, the more frightened I was becoming. And so finally, he just laid it out. He said, Terry, I've been a doctor for 25 years. I have never seen this form of cancer. And you should go to MD Anderson, which is probably one of the greatest cancer hospitals, certainly in the United States, maybe in the world. So I did. And I had 2 surgeries to remove the tumor on my foot and all the lymph nodes in my groin. And then when I healed, I was put on a weekly injection of a drug called interferon. interferon for me was just a horrible, nasty, debilitating drug. It basically gave me flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days after each injection. And I took those weekly injections for almost 5 years. So
Oh,
imagine
wow.
having the flu every week
Yeah.
for
So was
5
that
years.
your immune system that was being impacted?
It was designed to rev up my immune system to keep the disease at bay. I mean, the good thing about it is I didn't have so much as a cold for 5 years because
Yeah.
literally it went in there and killed everything. No colds, no flu, no anything. But when it stopped in 2017, the disease came right back. And then in
Oh.
2018, I had my left foot amputated because of the disease. 2019, the disease came back in my shin, 2 more surgeries. And then last year, an undiagnosed tumor in my ankle grew large enough that it fractured my tibia, my shin bone. And further testing, excuse me, found that I had cancer in my entire lower leg. And I also had tumors in my lungs. So last April, right in the middle of this fun global pandemic that we've all been involved in, I had my left leg amputated. And I am now undergoing treatment for the tumors in my lungs. So given all that, that's kind of why I consider myself a cancer warrior.
Oh, I mean, like I guess I didn't know all of that. So like it's interesting, Terry, because last week I interviewed a young guy that's 28 from Australia, and he had his leg amputated, and it was the same story. I mean, like I didn't know. It's interesting for me talking to people. I didn't know that you can get cancer in the foot. You know what I mean? You just don't think. And he had a sore ankle, and same thing. Went to get it checked out. Doctor said it's fine. They removed something, and then they found out from the test that it was cancer, and he had to get an amputation as well. So. Um, you seem really positive, or and I know that we're just meeting, but your energy is beautiful. So, what do you tap into that makes you, hunt and seek being healthy? Like, what's the thing that drives your, or how, because a lot of people might not have the motivation.
Yeah, I think, and it's funny because I listened to the podcast you did with, I believe it was Steve Morrison on suicide.
Yes.
Yeah. And he had a quote, and I use the same quote all the time. And it's pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And I've never heard anybody else use that quote. So it was kind of neat that he used it. And that's kind of where I am. It's like, you know what, we're all going to experience pain in our lives. And it doesn't have to be cancer. I mean, you could flunk a test at school or break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or, have a fender bender on the way to work in the morning, whatever it is. We're all going to experience pain. But the suffering part of that, that's up to you. If you want to stay down there in that muck and that gunk and wallow in it and say, oh, woe is me, that's an option. And you can do that. Or you can take all that crap, for lack of a better word, and use it to make you stronger, to make you tougher, to make you more determined. And that's where I am. But I don't want your audience to think, I mean, I certainly don't wear an S on my chest and I do not have a cape. So I don't want anybody to think I have all the answers because I don't.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that you're vulnerable. I think that's important. And see look how foggy I am. I had a condition where I woke up one day and I couldn't walk. And so I had to learn how to walk again. And that was probably a reason why this podcast has been, generated. But I don't know, like, I agree with you. But firstly, I wanted to ask, were you like that before that? Were you always that type of guy that was proactive versus, say, or were you a bit more complacent and then going through this is what made you tough? You know what I mean? Like, was it always in you?
Yeah, I always not to this degree. I mean, I had 3 knee surgeries when I was in high school, and 2 of them were pre-arthroscopic. They didn't have arthroscopic surgery then, and yet I still played college basketball. I still received a scholarship to play college basketball, and I quickly realized that we don't like pain. I mean, our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. So to the brain, the status quo is good. Don't mess with the way things are. The problem is we're never going to grow if we stay in the status quo. You've got to step outside yourself. You've got to, I always tell, especially young people, that if you have a passion for something in your heart, something that's burning that you want to do, and it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things that you're going to regret are not going to be the things you did. They're going to be the things you didn't do. And by that time, it's going to be too late to go back and do them. So find that passion and do it. And basketball was my passion. So when doctors were like, yeah, you're probably not going to play anymore, I'm like, hey, I'm 15 years old. The only success I've ever had is basketball. I'm not willing to give this up yet. So I learned early that I needed to fight for certain things that I wanted. So I've kind of been like that, but cancer certainly has solidified that into being much more aggressive in fighting it.
Yeah, I have to agree. Since I got my diagnosis, I feel like I've done all the things that I've been too scared to do. So the second question that goes with that is, do you think that, well, this is what I think because I've gone through it. Do you think that you don't really know until you go through it? Because I see what you're saying when, I try and inspire people through the Secret Men's business to, don't wait for something to happen like what happened to me. Get out there and talk like you just spoke. But I think people don't understand because they may think there's tomorrow. And when you go through a situation like we have, where it's, like I'm a runner and I can't run ever again. So you don't understand what that means until you have to go through that. So do you think people are getting it, or do you think that some people are waiting for their own crisis?
I think people don't realize just how much they can accomplish if they set their mind to it. I mean, I've lost a foot. I've lost a leg. I kid with my surgeon. I'm like, you're piecemealing me to hell, one body part at a time, kind of thing. So I think people limit themselves because there's so much more. I mean, you were born for greatness. You were born to make things happen in your life, but we're all kind of waiting. If you'll indulge me for a second, for a quick story that I've always been a big fan of Western movies. And you may have seen this movie. In 1993, the movie Tombstone came out. And it starred Kurt Russell as a guy by the name of John Doc Holliday. It starred Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, and it's Val Kilmer as John Doc Holliday. Now, Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday were two living, breathing human beings that walked on the face of the earth. They are not made up characters for the movie. And the scene I want to talk about real quick is at the end of the movie, Doc is dying at a sanitarium in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, which is literally about 3 hours from my house. And the real Doc Holliday did die at that sanitarium. He's buried in the springs. And the interesting thing about these two men is Wyatt had been a lawman his entire life. And Doc was called Doc because he was basically a dentist by trade, but he was a card shark and a gunslinger. And yet these two men from entirely different backgrounds form this very close friendship. And at the end of the movie, Doc's dying and Wyatt is destitute. He has no money, no job, no prospects for a job. So every day he comes to play cards with Doc to pass the time. And the two men are talking about what they want out of life. And Doc says, I was in love with my cousin when I was young, and she joined a convent over the affair, but she's all I ever wanted. And he looks at Wyatt and he says, what about you, Wyatt? What do you want? And Wyatt says, I just want to lead a normal life. And Doc looks at him and says, there's no normal, there's just life. And get on with living yours. I think that's kind of our problem. We're all waiting for that. Well, if this happens, then I'll pursue my goals. Or if my life becomes normal, then I will do this. Don't wait. Don't wait. There's no normal. There's no goals. There's just life. Get on with living yours. Don't wait for that life to come to you.
Yeah. And that probably justifies why we have so much anxiety, because, anxiety is about the future and everyone's waiting and, also comparing, right? And, I sort of, since I've been, in this medical condition, I make this sort of analogy that I am playing a video game and everyone in the world isn't real. They're just avatars. So it makes me just focus on me and what I want, because before my medical condition, I probably was a little bit stuck and slow and complacent, thinking, oh, I'll do that one day, or no one's going to want to hear me talking on a podcast. But, it does change your life when you go through something. And I know you're a strong man and you're a warrior, but I'm just curious, like, did you experience mental health stuff at the beginning? Like, I mean, I'm sure you had to have gone through a bit of a spectrum of like grief and all that. And how did you handle your mental health? Because I know, for example, my uncle lost his leg, and that was a long time ago, and he's still in the grief. He hasn't actually moved through it. So I think it's really important for you to share maybe what your strategies are of how you went through that.
Yeah, I did. Again, I don't have all the answers. I'm a human being just like you are. I have bad days. I mean, I was at treatment last week, and I remember Wednesday, and I'm just sitting there, and I just felt overwhelmed all of a sudden, and I started to cry. And I had a nurse come in and put her arm around me and stuff like that. I mean, I'm 6'8", 240. I was a college basketball player. You know what? I still have that stuff. I still have those bad days, those down days and stuff like that. And I had a nurse recently ask me, she's like, what was it like to have your foot removed? What was it like to have your leg cut off and stuff like that? And I told her, I said, don't get me wrong, it was not easy, but I am so much more than the sum of my parts. And
Wow.
there was a college basketball play, or coach back in 1993 here in the States by the name of Jim Valvano gave a great speech. He was dying of cancer. He had about 8 months to live. And he said, cancer can take all my, excuse me, my faculties, all my limbs, but cancer can't touch my heart. It can't touch my mind, and it can't touch my soul. I did not understand that in 1993. I
Yeah.
totally get that now. You can take everything away. That's not who I am. This
Mm.
is just a body that is holding who Terry Tucker really is, just like your body's holding who Joey is.
Yep.
So you can take all that away, and as long as you remember that's not who you are, it's a lot easier to get past that. But it wasn't easy, and there are still days where I wish I could play ball again, or I wish I wasn't in a wheelchair, and things like that. But I am. These are the
Mm.
cards that I've been dealt. I got to play them. So you take that pain and you just turn it inside, and you use it to make you tougher.
Yeah. So did you do it? So are you saying that you did it all by yourself, or did you go see a therapist, or So you did it sort of. I guess listening to your resume at the beginning. I mean, you've done a lot of things that involve discipline. Being a policeman, all that stuff. So that must have come in really handy. And for myself, I had a breakdown about 16, 17 years ago when I broke up with a partner. And then I became a therapist from that. But I think that breakdown prepared me for this, because I was when I couldn't walk, I was so like calm and able to cope. And I wanted to ask, I guess, clarify with you, like, we both have things that we can't do, but I love the way that the body can make us adapt. So when people say, "Are you okay?" I sort of laugh at them, because I can still do what I want to do. It's just that I'm not doing it the way that you think I should be doing it. Is that how you're finding it?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am not letting this limit me in any way, shape, or form. I mean, yes, there are certain physical things that I am unable to do, but you know what? There are certain physical things I was unable to do when I was 15 years old too. So and I had knee surgery. You're right. You focus on what you have, not on what you don't.
Yeah,
And I think that's the issue with mental health. People focus on what they don't have. It's
yeah.
like, focus on what you've got. What's in front of you? You are so much more than you really think you are.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting for like, I feel like I've done more now than when I had an able body. And I just look back and go, why? Sometimes I felt like I was in a coma, just walking around like a zombie, just following everyone, just wanting to be like everyone. And now I feel like I'm special. And I actually quite like that I've got this thing, because I can see that I'm doing things differently. Like, have you considered, or have you tried playing basketball in a wheelchair?
I haven't at this point in time. I unfortunately am on this clinical trial drug that I get every 3 weeks, and I get 2 weeks off, and I need those 2 weeks off. I've just started that because it's so physically, it just beats me up,
Right.
and I'm like, not that I won't at some point. I mean, my daughter is getting married in October, and I've made it. I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk her down the aisle. It may
Oh.
not be pretty, but I am going to walk her down the aisle. And so, don't bet against me on things that I really want to do.
Yeah. So you've gone through this amazing experience of transformation and acceptance, which I love. That's the whole theme of what I try and push is acceptance of self. So can you share with us? I know that you came up with these truths that you live your life by, and I was reading them, and I'm going, they may sound seem complex, but really they're quite simple things just to honor. And yeah, so share with us what they are and how you came about connecting with them.
Sure. So I have them on a post-it note. I'm looking at them right now here on my desk. I wrote them down. I see them every day, multiple times, and I'll give them to you. They're just like one sentence apiece. So the first one is, and we talked a little bit about this with my knee surgery. You need to control your mind, or your mind is going to control you. So that's the first one. The second one is you need to embrace the pain that we all experience in life and use that pain to make you a stronger and more determined individual. And the third one, and I've added this one fairly recently because I think it's important for people to consider kind of the end game, the end of their life. What are people going to say about you at your funeral? Would your ancestors be proud of the life that you have lived and things like that? So here's number 3. It's what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. And then number 4 is pretty self-explanatory. As long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And I recently had a nurse who came to me and said, Terry, this clinical trial you're on is really beating you up physically. Nobody would think anything less of you if you quit, if you got off the trial. And I tried to explain the truths to her, and I didn't get there. They didn't resonate with her. But I told her, I said, my doctor may take me off of this medication, or I may die on this medication, but I will never quit this medication because it's not how I'm wired. And it's helping me.
Yeah.
It has shrunk the tumor. It's not going to cure me, but it may buy me some more time. So I kind of look at it like, I've got pain in my life. That pain may end, or that pain will end someday. May end by surgery, may end by medication. In all honesty, it may end because I die. But if I quit, if I give up or I give in to this cancer, I'll always have pain with me because it'll be that mental pain of you quit, you gave up. So I use those truths. And I think the second one about using pain is really kind of where, most of us want to run away from it. And you and I both know, we know people who they medicate themselves, whether it's alcohol or drugs. I mean, there's people who want to, take their lives. There's ways out of the pain. I'm going to get rid of that pain. Maybe by surgery, maybe by medicine, maybe by death, but I'm never going to quit that pain. So I use that and I just flip it inside. I burn it as fuel or use it as energy just to make me a stronger and more determined individual. And I wish I knew how I did that because I'd write a book and go live in Jamaica somewhere.
I can maybe give you a clue because this is, as I said, the mantra of what I teach my clients. And so what you're describing, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, is that, so as people, we want to be whole, right? And so whole means that we accept all of ourselves. And your comment about people running away is telling us that we live in a society that most people don't want to like what they don't like. When I say to someone, you've got to love your anxiety or you've got to love your pain, they look at me funny and they go, why? I said, well, because it's happening. It's real. It's part of you. And if you bury it by self-medicating or if you bury it by doing other things, it means it's going to come back harder the next time and harder and harder. So what you're describing, which I've just recently really done myself, is all the pieces now have come together for you and you are whole. And so you speak from a place of total acceptance. That's why you're open to not giving up, because I believe there's only 2 ways of being, and that is being a victim or adapting, right? And we saw probably a lot of that in COVID. All the people that went crazy with the toilet paper and all that, and then the people, that said, okay, I might lose my job. I'm going to do this, this, and this, so I don't. And they were creative and productive. In a way, that's what we did. We saw our problem, and rather than seeing it as a problem, because I don't believe in problems, we saw opportunities, and that's what the trial is. And, I've been on 2 trials myself, but people look at you and think, oh my God, you're so brave, you're a hero. But I think all it is that we've just found the truth. And that's what I think what everyone wants. I mean, how wonderful to wake up and not say, oh my God, I'm so depressed because I got no leg. You know, instead you wake up and saying, I love my life because having no leg is you. It's the
It
moment.
is.
Yeah.
It is. You know, and it's funny because literally, you know, I had my leg amputated in April of 2020. I started chemotherapy for the tumors in my lungs in June of 2020. And during that 3-month period that I was supposed to be healing and sitting around eating bonbons and watching Netflix, I wrote a book.
Yes.
You know, so it was like, no, I'm not going to be defined by I don't have a leg. Yeah, I don't have a leg. But you know what? I can write a book. I've never written a book before, but this is something that I chose to do. And everybody's like, oh, how did you do that? One page at a time.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
that's all I
and
did.
also you're in the moment living your truth. I mean, when I feel down, I don't know if you heard, I can't remember his name to be honest, but there's a guy in Australia. Whenever I feel down about myself, I just put YouTube on, and this man in Australia, Harry, has got no arms or no legs. He's only a body, a torso. He got married. He travels the world inspiring people. And so I just look at 5 minutes of that video and I go, stop your whining, Joe. It's like this guy is doing all the things that he wants to do. And the funny thing is, the very first thing he says in all his talks is he sort of sits there silently and he can tell people are staring, right? And he
Right.
goes, please do not feel sorry for me because I honestly feel sorry for you. Right.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to think that, you know, people that look at disability, they think that you know, that whole thing with feeling sorry for people, I think they don't realize that what they're really doing is feeling sorry for themselves because they're seeing in this disabled person the resilience and the adversity and the strength. And they realize in that moment that they themselves don't have that. That's what I feel.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that because I joke a lot and I laugh a lot at my condition. And I remember after I had my foot amputated, I was coming out of the hospital and I was limping and there was a woman who was in the lobby and she was like staring at me. I mean, hard staring, you know, like, you know, and as I was getting closer and closer to her, I thought, you're staring at me. And so I thought, as I walked by her, I looked at her and I said, don't worry, it'll grow back. And I just kept walking, you know, and she went from staring to
Yeah.
thinking about it. Like, what am I, a salamander or something? Like, you know, if you cut my tail off, I'm going to grow a new one. But it was, you know what, huh? I am who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry this offends you, but we're going to make a joke about this. We're going to have some fun with
Yeah.
this and not be like, oh, that woman's staring at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're darn right she's staring at me. I'm worth staring at.
I don't think it's, you know, it's funny. I don't think it's about them feeling, you know, I think it's an education. It's people, most people live on the surface. And I do think that, I can only talk for myself, but being and going through what I've been through, it allows you to go deeper with yourself. And so that's why I see it as a gift, right? Some people are very lucky and they don't have to go through a medical or a tragedy to go do that. And that's my mission, is to get people to understand that. But when you experience life-changing stuff, because it is different, you do see the world differently, you know, like, so that woman just doesn't have a concept of what life is like unless you're, you know, normal in her eyes.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm in a wheelchair now, and you know, I'm looking at people's butts all day long. You know, and I was 6'8". Well, I still am 6'8" when I stand up. But you know, you just from a physical perspective, you get this. You know, now I'm here. I
Mm,
was here. You know, I was seeing over the top of everybody, and now I'm kind of down in the trees. You know,
yeah.
and it's just a different perspective of life that I've learned to appreciate.
Yeah, you get to see. I mean, I remember when I was in the wheelchair for the first few months, and the thing that I found really interesting is that yes, you're lower down, but I didn't realize that some people could look at you and they look sad, right? And then
Yeah,
other people had to turn away.
yeah.
They couldn't look at you, and I'm thinking, oh my god, like this is really extreme. It's like no one can look at me as if I'm me. Everyone had either a sadness or oh my god, I can't cope sort of thing. So that I found that interesting because I think there needs to be more awareness, and that's why this podcast or this topic is important, because people, I guess, don't go seeking information unless we talk about it. You know what I mean? So for
Yeah.
you, I was going to say, for you, I know you're strong. I know I believe that, but I just want to make sure that are you uh, uh, like in a way, releasing emotion when you need to, like you did with that nurse. You know what I mean? Are you able to be vulnerable when you need to?
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
thank you.
I have no problem crying. I have no, I mean, I want things to move my emotions. I
Mm,
want my emotions. If you think about, if you spend your day, sometime in thought, sometime in humor, sometime in prayer, that's a full day.
yeah,
Regardless of what you do for a living, or how you're spending your day, if you do that, I want my emotions to be moved to tears. I don't think that's a weakness. I think that's a sign of strength. And I
mm,
don't have any problem with saying, do you cry? You're damn right I cry.
yeah.
You're damn right I have bad days.
Well, that
And it's
explains the
okay to,
wholeness, I think.
yeah, it's okay to have those.
You're not,
There's nothing wrong
you
with
don't
you if
feel
you
like
cry.
you're weak. You don't feel that you're. But I think that's the thing with men, isn't it? Because men are a little bit uncomfortable with the vulnerability of being. My uncle. I look at him and I just see a lost man, but he doesn't realize that he's still alive. But rather he makes the medical situation make own him. Rather than saying I am a man, he says I am crippled. And so if you say that, you become crippled.
Yeah,
So it's really about
totally.
language and all that. So, like, what would be your advice to someone listening who may be going through? It doesn't have to be a medical situation, but any adversity. What would you say to them? Would it be using your truth, or do you have any other advice in regards to what they need to do or what they need to gather, rather than going externally and looking for drugs or sex or alcohol, like you were saying?
Yeah, I think my truths certainly help me. I'm not going to say that they're going to help everybody. I think you need to define your own truths, but it's sort of like, any problem that we face in life. Let's say you wanted to lose 30 pounds. Now, if you looked at that and said, "Oh my God, I got to lose 30 pounds," that's overwhelming. But what if you did this? What if you lost 1 pound a day? Because at the end of 30 days, you've lost 30 pounds. That's so, whatever that problem is, whatever that huge problem that you're staring at is, if you break that down into, for lack of a better word, bite sized chunks, something that you can digest easily, that problem can be taken care of. But if you look at that problem like, "Oh my God, I've got to lose 30 pounds," it's just, I mean, I want to get better. I want to be a better basketball player. Well, what if you got 1% better every day? At the end of a month, you're 30% better than when you started. So that would be, we all face problems in life. And sometimes those problems are huge and insurmountable as they stand. But if you break those down, what can I do today? What am I going to do today to deal with my cancer? You know what? I got to call and I got to make an appointment at the hospital. Okay. And then I see the doctor. And then, so you break that down, not like, "Oh my God, I got cancer, I'm going to die."
Yeah,
If you look at it like that, yeah, well, guess what? We're all going to die.
yeah,
Nobody's working on a cure for life, as far as I know. So, if we break our problems down, whatever those problems are, it's so much easier to handle them, to digest them, and to come out the other side like, "I took care of that." And when you
yeah.
take care of that problem, then you can have the confidence to take care of the next problem. And then the next problem doesn't seem as big to you, and so forth and so forth and so forth, until you have that confidence. You know what? I can do anything that life throws at me. And I know I can.
Yeah. So I'm just going to add to our listeners. I know that we're talking about really complex situations, but if you do have a mental health problem like depression, sometimes you need to go and see someone. Like, it doesn't mean that you avoid it, because going through an adversity is tough. So um, again, this is just an opinion. You're a father, and you probably kids because you were coaching and all that. I feel that there is a gap in between when you and I were young versus the new generation, right? So when we talked about adversity, I mean, and I saw this through COVID, right? I saw all these teenagers getting anxious. Do you feel like that there is a lack of understanding when it comes to what you were talking about? Because I feel like there's been a lot of emphasis on rewarding and not feeling that it's okay to lose or it's okay to make a mistake, right? When you look at social media, everything is perfect. And so the sort of vision at the moment is that I have to be this or I'm nothing. You know what I mean? So
Right.
when it comes to these situations, they don't have the skills to sort of deal with that. Do you agree, or do you think that there's something going on with the way that we're talking to our kids?
I think kind of both. I think, I've got a 25-year-old daughter who, I raised to say, you know what, there's nothing that you can't do. And you know what, life's going to kick you in the teeth from time to time. And I'm going to sit here as a parent and die inside, but I'm also going to say, good. Life
Mm,
just kicked you in the teeth. Now it's your turn to figure out what you're made of. Now it's your turn to take that adversity and make something of it. Because I always, especially with young people, and I know this, I'm an old man and it's easy for me to sit here and say this, but you want the approval of your peers. And I get that. But sometimes what I want to say to that is, why? Why do you care what these people say if all these people say is you're ugly or you've got big? I mean, when I was 13 years old, I was 6'5". I wore a size 13 shoe and my ears looked like Dumbo. My head had not caught up with my ears. And I got teased mercifully about that. But I put my energy into basketball. I don't care what you say. Yeah, I got big ears. There's nothing I can do about my ear size. So why do you care what all these peers are saying to you if it's negative? Why would you want to even hang around those people? Because at the end of your life, you're not going to be judged by what other people said or did. You're going to be judged by what you said, what you
you did.
did, and what you thought. So the heck with what other, especially if it's negative, the heck with what other people. Surround yourself with people that are telling you good, positive, healthy things. The rest of those people, tell them to go take a hike.
Yeah, I think that I agree totally, but I think that that is the thing that we need to get out there because I don't think they're doing that, and I do think that social media has changed everything.
Yeah,
Again,
because on
when you and I,
social media,
yeah, go on.
yeah, on social media, you'll tell me that I'm an ass, but you never tell that to me to my face.
Yeah,
That's what social media allows. It allows you to kind of throw a fire and forget missile out there at me. But the thing here's what I'm going to tell people: the only way that works is if you own that. If
mm,
you own what that person says about you, that's the only way it hurts you. If you're like, yeah, I mean, I was a police officer. Do you have any idea what kind of things I've been called and people have said about me? The only way that hurts me is if I own it.
yeah.
I
If you
didn't
take
own
it
it.
personally,
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? I'm going home and sleep in my bed. You're going to the jail and sleep on a concrete floor. Who's going to have a better night? Me.
yeah, yeah. Terry, thank you so much. I could talk to you for another hour. You've really inspired me. Like I don't think this is probably one of the best podcasts I've done. Like I just feel
Well, thank you,
very
Joe.
well. I just
It's
feel
you and me. It's talking. It's
yeah.
making a
Well,
difference in people's lives.
it's just been authentic, and I think that's the thing that I feel blessed about is that when you meet someone that's inspirational and there's no agenda, that's the key. It's just you really authentically wanting to share your story and connect with people. That's what makes it a good conversation, and I think that that's what people are lacking because ending it with the kids, they're all looking at their phones and no one's actually connecting. And so there seems to be no connection in regards to helping me or, they feel lost and they feel alone when they're in a problem. But all they have to do is just lift their head up and just look. I mean, it was so funny. My nephew was here the other day and he was texting me in the same room. He didn't even
Yeah.
say hello. He didn't speak to me. He just texted me in the room. So, yeah.
It's funny you say that. My daughter got my height. And so she went to the Air Force Academy on a basketball scholarship. And when she made the decision I'm going to go to the Air Force Academy. So there were 5 or 6 other coaches from other schools that were in on her that were interested in having her come. And I said, okay, now you've got to call them and tell them you've made your decision and you're not coming to their school. And she was like, well, I'll just send them a text. I'm like, oh, no, you won't.
Yeah.
No, you won't. You will call them. And she was like, I don't know what to. I'm like, and we had a role play how that was. And there were coaches from much smaller schools that yelled at her. I'm like, good. Welcome to life. You know what? You're going to make
Yeah.
a great decision for you, and somebody's going to be mad because you made that decision. That's a great lesson to learn
Yes.
when you're, 18 years old. So, yeah, get off your phones and start talking to each other. It's a great concept. And especially as police officers, people have said to me, what are the things I need to know to be a good cop? Put your phone down, go out on the street and talk to the homeless guy, and then
Mm.
go up to the penthouse and talk to that guy, because that's what being a cop is all about. You got to talk to people, you've got to interact with them, and you can't do it like this.
Yeah. Terry, thank you.
Thank
It's
you,
been a
Joe.
pleasure, and I'm going to ask you to be on this again. So
Sure, we can talk more.
I've got another podcast actually that I think I need to. Yeah, I need your time a bit more for that one.
I would love to.
So have a great day, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you very much. You take care of yourself.
You've been listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. Guys, the podcast is out on Mondays, and don't forget to hit subscribe and to hit the bell. Now, all the information about Terry will be linked below, so if you want to find out more, just click on the link. Have a great day, everyone. See you soon. Bye.